Welcome, dear friend. Have you ever wondered why some people recover quickly, while others with the same diagnosis suffer for years? Have you ever noticed how your body whispers before it shouts? How your shoulders tense during certain conversations, or your heart races when you're perfectly safe? There's an ancient conversation happening between your mind and body that most of us have forgotten how to hear. But some people never forgot. In quiet monasteries and remote villages, there are those who seem to carry a different kind of peace in their bodies. They age gracefully, heal naturally, and radiate a calm that feels almost magnetic. What if I told you their secret isn't complicated? What if healing isn't about adding more to your life, but about gently removing what was never truly yours to carry? If you're listening to this, something in you is ready for a different kind of medicine. Share where in the world you're joining us. It's beautiful to know we're connected across time zones and continents. Find your coziest spot, maybe with tea or wrapped in something soft. We're about to spend the next few hours together, and I promise you, this gets deeper and more profound as we go. For 2,500 years, Buddhist teachings have held a gentle truth about healing. Not through force or fixing, but through the quiet art of listening. Tonight, we'll discover 5 timeless principles that reveal how your mind, when properly aligned, can invite your body to heal itself. Stay with me. What comes next might just change how you heal forever. The first principle those ancient teachers discovered is both simple and profound. Why do your joints ache most after arguments? Why does your stomach twist into knots right before a difficult conversation you've been avoiding? These aren't coincidences, dear friend. Your body isn't malfunctioning. It's speaking a language older than words. Most of us have been taught to silence these whispers. We reach for pills to quiet the tension, distractions to numb the unease. But what if these sensations aren't problems to be solved, but messages to be heard? Let me share something that might sound familiar. There was a woman who carried an invisible weight in her chest for nearly 4 years. Not pain exactly, but a pressure, like something heavy was resting on her heart. She visited doctors, changed her diet, tried supplements. The tests came back normal, but nothing felt normal. One quiet evening, after a long day of searching for answers in all the wrong places, she finally sat still. No goal, no fixing, just breathing. And out of that stillness came a memory she hadn't touched in decades, the loss of her father, unprocessed grief, unspoken words. She wept, not like a dramatic movie scene, but quietly, dignified, like her body had finally been heard. Something miraculous happened the next morning. The tightness had softened. It didn't vanish completely, but it no longer screamed. It had been acknowledged, and that was enough to begin healing. The Buddha taught us something profound 2,500 years ago. Pain is inevitable, he said. Suffering is optional. But what he really meant was this: the body will experience discomfort, but when the mind resists it, labels it, fears it, that's when suffering arises. Here's the twist most people never hear. Healing doesn't begin when you do something. It begins when you stop doing and start feeling. When you stop asking, "How do I make this go away?" and start asking, "What are you trying to show me?" Think about the last time your back tensed up. Were you carrying more than just groceries? Consider how your stomach responds to certain people, certain conversations, certain memories. Your digestive system doesn't just process food, it processes life. So many of us walk through life, treating our bodies like battlefields. We try to conquer fatigue, numb pain, override tension. But the truth is, your body isn't fighting you, it's fighting for you. Every symptom is a signal. Every signal is a request. Please listen. In Zen Buddhism, we don't rush to fix. We learn to listen. Because sometimes pain is not the problem, it's the messenger. And messengers, when honored, often transform into healers. Imagine your body as a wise old friend who's been trying to get your attention for years. This friend doesn't speak in words but in sensations, in whispers, in gentle nudges. How long has this friend been waiting for you to pause and ask, "What do you need me to know?" Let's slow this down even more. Right now, as you're listening, notice your breath. Is it shallow or deep? Notice your shoulders. Are they creeping toward your ears? Feel your jaw. Is it clenched against some invisible threat? These aren't signs of weakness. They're not evidence that you're broken. They're simply your body's way of saying, "I'm here, I'm aware, I'm responding to your world." But here's where the magic happens. When you acknowledge these sensations without trying to change them, something shifts. It's like finally answering a phone that's been ringing for hours. The urgency dissolves because the message has been received. There's another story I'd like to share. A man who suffered from chronic headaches for years discovered something remarkable during a mindfulness retreat. When he stopped reaching for relief and started breathing into the tension, he realized his headaches always came after conversations where he didn't speak his truth. His head was literally heavy with unspoken words. Once he made this connection, the headaches didn't disappear overnight, but they became teachers instead of tormentors. Each time the familiar pressure began, he would ask himself, "What truth am I avoiding?" And slowly, gently, he learned to speak before his body had to shout. This is the revolutionary shift Buddhist teachings offer. Your body doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be heard. It doesn't need to be controlled, it needs to be trusted. Because beneath every ache, every tension, every mysterious symptom, there's wisdom waiting to be discovered. The ancient texts speak of the body as a temporary vessel, but also as a sacred teacher. Every sensation is a sutra, every breath a meditation, every heartbeat a reminder that life is flowing through you right now. Consider how your body responds to different environments. Perhaps you feel lighter in nature, heavier in crowded spaces. Maybe your energy shifts when you're around certain people. Some drain you, others nourish you. Your body is constantly reading the world, offering you information that your mind might miss. There was a teacher who noticed her throat would tighten every time she entered the staff meeting room. For months, she blamed it on stress, on being too busy, on getting older. But when she finally listened to what her throat was telling her, she realized it happened only when she was in situations where she felt unheard. Her throat was contracting in anticipation of being silenced. This awareness didn't immediately change her workplace dynamics, but it changed everything about how she approached them. She began speaking earlier in meetings, asking for what she needed, honoring the wisdom her throat had been offering all along. And gradually, the tightness softened. Your body holds such intimate knowledge about your life. It remembers every kindness and every wound. It knows which foods truly nourish you and which ones you eat for comfort. It recognizes love at a cellular level and recoils from anything that doesn't honor your worth. In Buddhist understanding, the body is not separate from the mind. They are one flowing expression of consciousness. When we try to silence the body's voice, we're actually silencing our own deeper wisdom. When we listen to its messages with compassion, we're practicing the most intimate form of meditation. Think of a time when you felt truly at peace. Where were you? Who were you with? What was happening in your body? Notice how peace isn't just a mental state. It's a whole body experience. Your shoulders relax, your breathing deepens, your heart opens. This is your body's way of saying, yes, this is how life is meant to feel. But we've been taught to override these signals, to push through fatigue, to ignore discomfort, to power past our body's requests for rest, for movement, for stillness. We've forgotten that the body is not just a vehicle for the mind, it's a partner in the dance of being alive. There's a beautiful practice in Zen called body scanning, not as a technique to fix anything, but as a way of saying hello. You simply move your attention through your body like a gentle breeze, noticing what's there without judgment. The tight places, the soft places, the places that feel forgotten. When you do this, you might discover that your left hip holds old sadness, or that your right shoulder carries everyone else's burdens. You might find that your heart feels both tender and strong, or that your belly holds wisdom you never knew was there. These aren't diagnoses to worry about. They're invitations to deeper relationship with yourself. The body speaks in metaphors, in symbols, in the poetry of sensation. A broken heart can literally ache. Shouldering responsibility can create physical tension. Having no backbone might manifest as chronic back pain. Your body is both literal and metaphorical, practical and mystical. One woman discovered that her chronic digestive issues weren't just about food, they were about what she couldn't stomach in her life. The job that no longer fit, the relationship that had grown toxic, the dreams she'd swallowed to keep peace. When she began to digest these truths emotionally, her physical digestion improved. This doesn't mean that all illness is emotional or that healing is always simple. Sometimes, bodies get sick, organs fail, accidents happen. But even in the midst of serious illness, the quality of our relationship with our body matters. Do we approach it with fear and resistance, or with love and curiosity? The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent, including pain, including illness, including the stories we tell ourselves about what's wrong with us. When we hold our physical experiences lightly, with compassion, rather than catastrophe, we create space for healing to unfold in ways we might never have imagined. There's another layer to this body wisdom that many miss. Your body doesn't just respond to your current thoughts and feelings. It carries the memory of every touch, every word, every moment of safety or danger you've ever experienced. Sometimes, when you feel inexplicably tense around certain people, your body is simply remembering something your mind has forgotten. A woman once shared that she always felt nauseous during family gatherings, even though she loved her relatives dearly. Through gentle exploration, she realized her body was holding the memory of childhood dinners, where conflict simmered beneath polite conversation. Her stomach had learned to brace itself for hidden tension, even decades later. This discovery didn't make her family gatherings perfect, but it helped her understand why she needed to take breaks, to step outside for fresh air, to honor her body's need for space. She learned to whisper to her stomach before these events, "I hear you, I remember, and I'll take care of us both." Your body is also incredibly responsive to beauty, to kindness, to moments of unexpected joy. Notice how your breathing changes when you see a sunset, how your muscles soften when someone speaks to you with genuine care. Pay attention to how your whole being lights up around certain music, certain landscapes, certain people who see you clearly. These aren't just pleasant experiences, they're your body's way of saying, "This, yes, this feeds us. This is what we're designed for." Your body knows the difference between what drains your life force and what replenishes it. It's been keeping score all along, waiting for you to start paying attention. In Zen monasteries, there's a practice called mindful eating, where each bite is experienced fully, the texture, the temperature, the way it settles in your stomach. This isn't about diet or nutrition, it's about relationship. How does your body receive this food? What does it need? What brings it joy? The same mindfulness can be applied to everything: the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you breathe through difficult moments. Your body is always in conversation with the world, always offering you guidance about what serves your deepest well-being. Some people worry that listening to their body will make them self-obsessed or hypochondriacal. But the opposite is true. When you truly listen to your body with compassion, you become more present, more grounded, more able to be fully with others. You're no longer fighting an internal war, so you have more energy for love, for service, for joy. Most people will continue to chase fixes and miss the whispers. They'll keep asking their bodies to be silent instead of learning their language. But you're here, you're listening, and that already makes you different. That already makes you wise. Your body has been your faithful companion since your first breath. It has carried you through joy and sorrow, celebration and loss. It has adapted, healed, grown, and changed with remarkable resilience. Even when you've ignored it, criticized it, or taken it for granted, it has continued to serve you with unwavering loyalty. Think about this for a moment. Your heart has been beating without your conscious effort for years, decades perhaps. Your lungs have been breathing for you while you sleep, while you worry, while you dream. Your cells have been regenerating, your wounds have been healing, your immune system has been protecting you in ways you'll never fully comprehend. This isn't just biology, it's love in action. Your body loves you so completely that it continues to function even when you don't love it back. It forgives your neglect, your criticism, your impatience. It keeps hoping that one day you'll remember you're on the same team. Tonight, before you sleep, try something beautifully simple. Place your hand on your heart and close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths and say quietly, "I'm here now." I hear you. See what rises. See what softens. See what your body has been waiting to tell you. You might feel nothing at first, and that's perfectly okay. Or you might feel everything at once: old grief, forgotten joy, unnamed longings. Whatever appears, simply breathe with it. Don't try to solve it or understand it completely. Just acknowledge it like you would an old friend who's finally come home. Your body has been waiting patiently, like a loyal companion you haven't called in a while, but who still answers warmly the moment you do. It never stops believing in you. It never stops hoping you'll remember the conversation you were born to have. Some nights, you might place your hand on your heart and feel only emptiness, and that's information too. Emptiness isn't the absence of something, it's the presence of space. Space for breath, for healing, for whatever wants to emerge when the time is right. Other nights, you might be overwhelmed by what surfaces, waves of unexplained sadness, sudden anger, or deep gratitude. All of it is welcome. All of it is part of the conversation your body has been longing to have. But listening is only the beginning of this journey. Because here's what nobody tells you about the deeper pain we carry. Sometimes the heaviest burdens aren't the ones we can see. They're the emotions we've been carrying in silence for years, maybe even decades. And when we're ready to meet these hidden guests with compassion, that's when the real healing begins. Now, the second principle reveals something even more profound about this ancient conversation between mind and body. Your liver remembers your anger, your gut stores your fear, your chest holds your grief. But here's what nobody tells you. Sometimes the heaviest burdens aren't the ones you can see, but the emotions you've been carrying in silence for years, maybe even decades. In Zen Buddhism, we don't bypass emotion in the name of peace. We sit with it, We bow to it because what you don't feel, you can't heal. And what you avoid emotionally, your body will eventually carry physically. Think of your body as a living scroll, a sacred autobiography that stores every unspoken goodbye, every stifled scream, every swallowed, "I'm not okay." How many years have you been collecting what you were too busy, too scared, or too polite to release? The Buddha taught that we suffer not because we feel, but because we resist feeling. He understood that emotions are like clouds. They form, they move across the sky of consciousness, and they dissolve. But when we try to stop the clouds from moving, when we grasp them or push them away, we create suffering. There was someone who went to their first silent meditation retreat. On the second day, during walking meditation, they broke down in tears. When gently asked what had surfaced, they said through quiet sobs, "I just realized I never got to grieve my mother. I was too busy taking care of everyone else." That moment changed everything for them. Not because they cried, but because for the first time in decades, they allowed it. They had spent so many years being strong, being reliable, being the one others leaned on, that they had forgotten they too needed to lean. Buddhist teaching reminds us that suffering is not the enemy, suppression is. Like stagnant water in a still pond, what is unexpressed begins to rot. Emotion, when blocked, becomes inflammation. Thoughts become tension. Silence becomes sickness. In the traditional Buddhist understanding, there are what we call the 5 poisons: greed, hatred, delusion, pride, and jealousy. But these become poisonous only when they're denied, when they're pushed into the shadows of our awareness. When met with mindful attention, these same energies can transform into wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Your body doesn't just carry your current emotions, it holds the entire library of your unexpressed life. The tears you didn't cry at your father's funeral because you had to be strong for everyone else. The rage you swallowed when you were treated unfairly because speaking up felt too dangerous. The fear you've been carrying since childhood that whispers you're not enough, not safe, not worthy of love. Every culture has its own ways of teaching emotional suppression. Big boys don't cry. Good girls don't get angry. Don't be a burden. Keep your chin up. These well-meaning phrases create invisible cages around our emotional expression, teaching us that certain feelings are unacceptable. Imagine your body as a house, and every unspoken emotion as a box shoved into the attic. At first, there's plenty of room up there. You can pretend those boxes don't exist. But eventually, the weight of what's unspoken starts creaking through the floorboards. The house begins to sag under the burden of all those forgotten feelings. And one day, your body whispers, then speaks, then shouts, "Please, can we unpack some of these boxes? I'm getting tired of carrying what was never meant to be stored forever." The ancient Buddhist masters understood something profound about emotional energy. They knew that emotions are not solid things, but flowing energies that naturally want to move and transform. When we create dams in our emotional rivers, the water doesn't disappear. It backs up, creating pressure, flooding areas that were meant to stay dry. People often wonder, but I've been ignoring this for years. How can feeling it now possibly help? Here's the beautiful truth. Your body never stops believing in you. It waits patiently, like a loyal friend you haven't called in ages, but who still answers warmly the moment you do. There was someone who had been carrying chronic fatigue for years. No amount of rest seemed to restore their energy. During a meditation session, something unexpected happened. They began to weep, not from sadness, but from a release so profound it seemed to come from their very cells. For 30 minutes, they cried. Not the dramatic, cathartic crying you see in movies, but something deeper, like their body had finally been given permission to release decades of held breath. When the tears subsided, they said with wonder, "I feel like I just came back into my body for the first time in years." They didn't feel weak after this release. They felt real, alive, light, like they'd finally come home to themselves. Because once you've made peace with your pain, nothing can be used against you. In the Buddhist understanding, emotions are like weather patterns passing through the sky of your awareness. They arise, they peak, they dissolve, but only if you don't resist them. When we try to dam up our emotional rivers, they don't disappear. They flood the basement of our being. The ancient texts speak of emotions as messengers from the deep unconscious. Anger arrives to tell you when your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness comes to show you what you've lost and how deeply you've loved. Fear appears to point toward what matters most to you. Each emotion carries information, guidance, wisdom, if only we're willing to listen. Your anger, when honored, becomes boundary-setting power. Your sadness, when allowed, becomes compassion for others who suffer. Your fear, when acknowledged, becomes wisdom about what truly matters. But when these emotions are stuffed away, they become the very symptoms you're trying to heal. The liver, in traditional wisdom, is said to store anger. Have you ever noticed how your stomach cramps when you're anxious? How your shoulders carry the weight of responsibilities that aren't even yours? Your body speaks in the poetry of metaphor. It literally embodies your emotional truth. A woman once discovered that her chronic digestive issues weren't just about food. They were about what she couldn't stomach in her life, the job that drained her spirit, the relationship that had grown toxic, the dreams she'd swallowed to keep everyone else comfortable. When she began to digest these emotional truths, her physical digestion began to heal. This doesn't mean all illness is emotional, or that healing is always straightforward. Bodies are complex, and sometimes medical intervention is absolutely necessary. But what we're exploring here is the profound connection between emotional suppression and physical expression. Consider how many ways we've been taught to silence our emotional voices. Don't cry. Don't be angry. Stop being so sensitive. Get over it. From childhood, we learn that certain feelings are acceptable and others must be hidden away. But emotions don't simply vanish because we've decided they're inconvenient. They go underground, into the caves of our unconscious, into the tissues of our body. They wait there, sometimes for decades, hoping one day to be acknowledged, to be felt, to be released. In Zen monasteries, there's a saying, "The bamboo that bends in the storm does not break." This wisdom applies perfectly to our emotional lives. When we resist our feelings, we become rigid, like a tree that fights the wind. When we learn to bend with our emotions, to flow with them rather than against them, we develop the flexibility to weather any storm. Think about the last time you felt truly angry. Where did you feel it in your body? Perhaps your jaw clenched, your hands made fists, your chest tightened. Now imagine if you never allowed that anger, its full expression, if you swallowed it instead. Where do you think it went? It doesn't disappear. It takes up residence in your jaw, creating tension, headaches. It settles in your hands, making them ache. It lives in your chest, making it hard to breathe deeply. Your body becomes the storage unit for your unlived emotional life. There was a man who suffered from chronic shoulder pain for nearly a decade. He had tried every treatment imaginable: massage, chiropractic care, physical therapy, injections. Nothing provided lasting relief. One day, as he sat quietly contemplating what his shoulders might be carrying beyond physical weight, something shifted. He suddenly began to understand his pain differently, realizing he had been carrying his father's weight for 30 years. His father had died when he was just 18, and he had stepped into the role of family provider, shouldering responsibilities that belonged to someone older, more experienced. "I've been carrying my father's burden," he realized. That recognition didn't immediately heal his shoulders, but it began a process of understanding. He started to see that his shoulders were heavy, not just from physical labor, but from the invisible burden of premature responsibility. As he learned to acknowledge this weight and gradually share it with others, his physical pain began to soften. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, but he also understood that the antidote isn't detachment, it's conscious engagement. When we unconsciously push away our emotions, we become attached to the very act of avoiding them. But when we consciously choose to feel what we've been avoiding, we create the possibility for true freedom. Your body is incredibly intelligent in how it stores emotion. It doesn't randomly place feelings anywhere. There's an elegant logic to its emotional geography. Hearts carry heartbreak and love. Throats hold unspoken words. Stomachs digest not just food but experiences. Backs carry burdens, both literal and metaphorical. Ancient wisdom traditions speak of energy centers throughout the body, each one governing different aspects of emotional and spiritual life. The heart center holds love and grief. The throat center governs expression and truth. The solar plexus manages personal power and digestion of experience. When emotions get stuck in these centers, they create the very symptoms we're trying to heal. When you begin to understand this body language, you start to see symptoms not as problems, but as communications. Your migraine might be asking, what thoughts are you thinking over and over that create this pressure? Your insomnia might be saying, what are you not ready to let go of and rest into? Your digestive issues might be requesting, what in your life needs to be processed differently? In traditional Buddhist monasteries, there's a practice called emotional sitting, where monks would sit with difficult emotions until they naturally dissolved. Not to get rid of them, but to understand their nature, to see how they arise and pass away. They discovered that emotions, when met with complete acceptance, transform themselves. This is very different from the modern tendency to either suppress emotions or be overwhelmed by them. In the Buddhist middle way, you neither push feelings away nor get swept away by them. You become the compassionate witness, the loving awareness in which all emotions can arise and dissolve safely. Most people think that feeling their emotions will make them weaker, but the opposite is true. When you learn to feel without being destroyed by feeling, you develop an unshakable inner strength. You become like a mountain that allows storms to pass over it without being moved. There was a woman who struggled with chronic anxiety for years. She had tried medication, therapy, lifestyle changes. Everything helped a little, but nothing provided the deep peace she craved. During meditation, she began to explore what her anxiety was really about. As she sat in silence, she started to feel into the quality of her anxiety rather than just trying to escape it. She described it as a buzzing in my chest, like a hummingbird trapped in a cage. Instead of trying to calm the hummingbird, she explored what it might be trying to tell her. Gradually, she realized that her anxiety was actually unexpressed excitement about life, creativity, possibilities, but she had been taught that excitement was dangerous, that hoping for too much led to disappointment. Her anxiety was excitement wearing the mask of fear. Once she understood this, she could begin to relate to her anxiety differently. Instead of fighting it, she could thank it for trying to protect her and gently help it remember that it was safe to feel excited about life. Her anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but it transformed from a tormenting enemy into a misguided friend. The Buddha taught that what we resist persists, but what we embrace transforms. When you choose to feel what you've been avoiding, something miraculous happens. Your energy stops being trapped in the exhausting work of suppression and becomes available for healing, for joy, for presence. There's a beautiful teaching in Buddhism about the lotus flower. It grows in muddy water, yet blooms pristine and pure. The mud isn't the enemy of the lotus, it's the very substance that nourishes its beauty. In the same way, our difficult emotions aren't obstacles to our peace, they're the raw material for our wisdom and compassion. Most people think strength means keeping it all together, but real strength is allowing things to fall apart on purpose. Not dramatically, not for attention, but quietly, authentically, like a tree shedding its leaves, trusting that spring will come again. Imagine sitting across from your body as if it were a dear friend you haven't seen in years. What would you say? What would you ask? What would you apologize for? Often, people discover they would say, "I'm sorry, I haven't been listening. I'm sorry I've been so hard on you. I'm sorry I've been carrying everyone else's pain and forgetting to tend to yours." And then, if they're really brave, they ask their body, "What have you been trying to tell me? What have you been holding that I'm finally ready to feel?" The answers that come aren't always comfortable, but they're always honest. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm angry about what happened when I was young. I'm grieving the life I thought I'd have. I'm afraid I'm running out of time. But here's what's beautiful about this practice. You don't have to solve these feelings or make them go away. You just have to acknowledge them, like welcoming unexpected guests into your home. Oh, grief, you're here. Come in. Sit down. What do you need me to know? When emotions are met with this kind of gentle curiosity instead of resistance, they often reveal their gifts. Grief shows you how deeply you've loved. Anger reveals where your boundaries have been crossed. Fear points to what matters most to you. In Zen, we speak of sitting with difficult emotions, not to wallow in them, but to honor them as teachers. When you stop running from your feelings, they stop chasing you. When you stop fighting your pain, it stops fighting back. There's an ancient Buddhist story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "How terrible." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. The neighbors said, "How wonderful." The farmer replied, "Maybe." This story continues, showing how each apparent blessing or curse transforms into its opposite. The wisdom here applies to our emotions. What we judge as negative emotions often carry gifts. What we celebrate as positive emotions sometimes need balance. When we stop labeling our feelings as good or bad and simply meet them with curiosity, we discover the wisdom they all contain. Your emotional system is actually incredibly sophisticated. It's designed to help you navigate life, to signal when something needs attention, to motivate you toward what serves your well-being. But when emotions get stuck, they can't fulfill their natural function. They become like a fire alarm that never turns off, even when there's no fire. A man once described his chronic irritability as living with a smoke detector that beeps constantly. Through gentle self-exploration, he discovered that his irritability was actually old grief that had never been allowed to be sad. Grief that couldn't be felt had transformed into anger that couldn't be soothed. When he finally allowed himself to feel the sadness beneath his anger, something beautiful happened. His irritability didn't disappear completely, but it returned to its natural function as a signal rather than a constant state. He could feel angry when something genuinely needed his attention, and then let the anger go when its message had been received. Stories like this happen more often than you might think. Someone discovers they're not broken, just carrying years of unprocessed emotion in their body. Through gentle practice, they learn to create space for what they've been avoiding. And gradually, beautifully, they discover they're not broken at all. They're just human. Your emotions are not enemies to be conquered. They're not problems to be solved. They're the very aliveness flowing through you, asking only to be felt, acknowledged, honored. There's ancient wisdom in the phrase, "This too shall pass." Not as a way to bypass what you're feeling, but as a reminder that emotions are like waves. They rise, they crest, they fall. But only if you let them move through you instead of getting stuck in you. Sometimes people worry that if they start feeling their suppressed emotions, they'll never stop crying, or they'll be overwhelmed by rage, or they'll fall into a pit of sadness they can't climb out of. But this isn't what happens when emotions are met with mindful awareness. When you feel with presence, emotions move through you like water through a clear stream. When you feel with resistance, they get stuck like debris in a dam. The goal isn't to feel nothing, it's to feel everything with such spacious awareness that nothing can knock you off balance. In the Buddhist tradition, we often speak of the guest house of the heart. Every emotion that arrives, joy, sorrow, anger, fear, is welcomed as a guest. Some guests are delightful and you want them to stay. Others are difficult and you can't wait for them to leave. But all are met with the same basic hospitality, acknowledgement, respect, and the understanding that they are temporary visitors. The 13th century poet Rumi, deeply influenced by Buddhist wisdom, wrote about this beautifully. He suggested that each emotion is a guide from beyond, bringing us exactly what we need for our growth. Even the dark guests, depression, rage, shame, come bearing gifts if we're brave enough to receive them. You cannot attract wholeness from a fragmented heart. You cannot manifest peace if grief is locked in your chest. Energy is honest. What you resist persists, but what you embrace transforms. When you choose to release, to soften, to feel, your vibration changes. And life, like a mirror, reflects that back to you. Healing, people, opportunities, peace, they all begin to flow toward the space you've created by no longer hiding from yourself. One of the most profound practices you can do is to write a letter to your body. Not a mental note, but an actual letter, with pen and paper. Start with, "Dear body," and then let whatever wants to come pour onto the page. You might find yourself writing, "I'm sorry I've been so critical of you. I'm sorry I've ignored your signals. I'm sorry I've tried to silence you when you were trying to help me." Or you might write, "Thank you for carrying me through every day, even when I don't appreciate you. Thank you for healing my cuts, for breathing while I sleep, for holding my emotions when I didn't know how to hold them myself." And then, on a separate piece of paper, let your body write back to you. Put pen to paper and see what wants to emerge. Don't think about it, just let the words flow. You might be surprised by what your body has to say. Often, the body's letter is full of love, forgiveness, and gentle guidance. "I'm not angry with you," it might say. "I've just been trying to get your attention. I know what you need, if you're willing to listen." This isn't make-believe or mystical fantasy. This is your own inner wisdom speaking, the part of you that knows exactly what you need for healing, but has been waiting for permission to be heard. Many people discover that their body's letter contains practical guidance. Rest more. Move gently. Say no to what drains you. Seek out what brings you joy. Stop carrying other people's emotions. Remember that you are worthy of care. In Zen Buddhism, we understand that the body is not separate from Buddha nature, it is an expression of it. When you honor your body's emotional wisdom, you're not being self-indulgent. You're practicing the most intimate form of compassion. The tragedy is that most people will carry their emotional weights until the very end, never realizing they were optional burdens. They'll continue to medicate symptoms while ignoring the emotional causes. They'll keep asking their bodies to be silent instead of learning to speak their language. But you're different. You're here, listening, feeling something stir that perhaps you've kept quiet for too long. That's not a coincidence. That's your inner wisdom calling you home to yourself. Tonight, when the world grows quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, try placing both hands on your heart. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Ask quietly, "What have you been holding for me? What are you ready to release?" You might feel a wave of emotion, sadness you've been postponing, anger you've been swallowing, fear you've been carrying alone. Or you might feel nothing at first, and that's perfect too. Sometimes the body needs to trust that it's truly safe before it opens its vault of stored feelings. Whatever arises, breathe with it. Don't try to understand it or fix it or make it different. Just let it be there, like weather passing through the sky of your awareness. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. This isn't falling apart, it's coming together. Your body is not your enemy. Your emotions are not your problems. They are the very aliveness flowing through you, the evidence that you are not a machine but a feeling, breathing, magnificently complex being who has survived everything life has given you so far. Once you've begun to release what you've been carrying, once you've started this sacred conversation with your own heart, something beautiful happens. You begin to discover that healing isn't just about letting go, it's also about where you choose to place your attention, moment by moment. And that brings us to the 3rd principle, one of the most powerful medicines that has always been available to you, hiding in plain sight. The 3rd principle holds perhaps the most revolutionary truth of all. What if the cure isn't hidden in tomorrow's appointment, next year's wellness trend, or some distant moment when everything finally falls into place? What if healing isn't somewhere you're going, but somewhere you already are? What if everything you need is contained in this exact breath, this present heartbeat, this simple moment of being alive. In Zen Buddhism, we say, the past is memory, the future is imagination, but only the present is real. Yet most of us live as if the opposite were true. We replay yesterday's regrets like a broken film reel, or fast forward into tomorrow's worries that haven't even happened. Meanwhile, this moment, the only one that's actually real, slips by, unnoticed, like a friend we keep standing up. The Buddha discovered something extraordinary during his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He realized that all suffering comes from mental time travel. When the mind is fully present, when it stops its restless journey between past and future, something profound happens. Peace isn't something that arrives from somewhere else. It's what's revealed when the mental noise stops. Here's the twist that still surprises many people. Suffering doesn't just come from pain, it comes from being mentally absent when pain arises. When you're fully present with discomfort, something changes about its quality. It's still there, but the resistance to it, the story about it, the fear of it, all of that dissolves. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in something beautiful. Perhaps watching a sunset, listening to music that moved you, or holding someone you love. In those moments, where was your anxiety? Where were your worries about the future or regrets about the past? They weren't gone because you solved them. They were gone because you were completely here. There's someone whose story illustrates this beautifully. For years, they had struggled with chronic pain and an anxious mind that never seemed to rest. One afternoon, feeling overwhelmed by both physical discomfort and mental chatter, they sat beneath an old Bodhi tree they had planted in their garden years before. They weren't trying to meditate or fix anything. They were simply too tired to keep fighting, too exhausted to maintain the constant effort of trying to be somewhere other than where they were. So, they just sat, watching the leaves move in the breeze, feeling their breath, listening to the subtle sounds of life around them. For the first time in months, maybe years, they weren't thinking about how to feel better. They weren't planning tomorrow or reviewing yesterday. They were simply present with what was actually happening right now. And in that stillness, something extraordinary occurred. The pain didn't disappear, but their relationship with it completely transformed. Instead of fighting against it, they found themselves breathing with it. Instead of fearing it, they discovered they could hold it with compassion. The anxiety didn't vanish, but it lost its grip. It became just another sensation moving through awareness, no more threatening than the sound of wind in the leaves. They realized something profound that day. For years, they had been adding their resistance to their pain, their worry to their discomfort, their stories to their sensations. They had been living not just with what was actually happening, but with all their thoughts about what was happening. And it was the thoughts about the experience, not the experience itself, that had been causing most of their suffering. This is what the Buddhist masters mean when they speak of presence as medicine. It's not that being present magically makes everything perfect. It's that presence reveals the difference between what's actually happening and what we think is happening. And most of our suffering lies in that gap. Think of your mind like a snow globe. When you shake it, everything becomes a blur, confusion, chaos, overwhelm. You can't see clearly through all the swirling particles. But when you stop shaking the globe, when you set it down and wait, the flakes slowly settle. Clarity returns. The scene that was always there beneath the storm reveals itself. Your mind works the same way. When you're constantly shaking it with worries about the future and regrets about the past, everything becomes cloudy. But when you stop the shaking, when you come fully into this moment, the mental snow settles. And what was always there beneath the storm of thinking becomes visible. Peace, clarity, a deep okayness that doesn't depend on circumstances. The beautiful thing about this moment is that it's always available. You don't need to earn it, achieve it, or wait for the right conditions. You don't need to be in a special place or have everything figured out. This moment is here whether you're washing dishes, sitting in traffic, or lying awake at 3 in the morning. And here's something most people don't realize. You can practice presence anywhere, with anything. You can wash dishes with the same awareness that monks bring to meditation. Feel the warm water. Notice the texture of the soap. Be present with the simple act of cleaning. You can walk to your mailbox with complete attention, feeling your feet touch the ground with each step. In Buddhist monasteries, there's a practice called mindful work, where every daily task becomes an opportunity for meditation. Sweeping the floor, preparing food, tending the garden, all of these ordinary activities are approached with the same reverence as sitting meditation. The monks understand that presence doesn't require special circumstances. It transforms ordinary circumstances into something sacred. You can brush your teeth as if it were a sacred ritual. Feel the bristles, taste the toothpaste, notice the sensations in your mouth. You can drink your morning coffee like it's the most important thing you'll do all day. Because in those moments, when you're fully present, it actually is. This isn't about making every moment special or perfect. Some days, just brushing your teeth without checking your phone deserves a round of applause. Small wins matter. Tiny moments of presence add up. They create momentum, building your capacity to stay grounded even when life gets turbulent. There was someone who discovered this during a particularly difficult period in their life. They were dealing with health challenges, work stress, and family difficulties all at once. Everything felt overwhelming, and their mind was constantly racing between different problems. One morning, feeling particularly scattered, they decided to try something different. Instead of rushing through their morning routine while mentally rehearsing the day's challenges, they chose to be completely present with each small action. They felt the water temperature while brushing their teeth. They noticed the aroma of their coffee. They paid attention to the feeling of their feet on the floor as they walked from room to room. By the time they left for work, something had shifted. The problems hadn't disappeared, but they felt more grounded, more capable of handling whatever the day might bring. They realized that presence wasn't just a nice idea, it was practical medicine for an overwhelmed nervous system. There's an ancient Buddhist teaching that says, "Wherever you are, be there totally." This sounds simple, but it's actually revolutionary. Most of us are everywhere except where we are. We're physically at dinner, but mentally at work. We're talking to our children, but thinking about our to-do list. We're living our lives at arm's length, always slightly removed from our actual experience. But when you learn to arrive fully in your life, something magical happens. Colors become more vivid. Food tastes better. Conversations become more meaningful. Even difficult emotions lose their power to overwhelm you because you're not resisting them anymore. You're meeting them with the full capacity of your present moment awareness. The body, as we've learned, is always in the present moment. It's never anywhere else. Your breath is happening now. Your heartbeat is now. The sensation of your feet on the floor is now. When you anchor your attention in these simple, immediate physical sensations, you automatically return to presence. This is why breath has been central to meditation practices for thousands of years. Not because breathing is mystical, but because it's always happening in the present moment. You can't breathe yesterday's breath or tomorrow's breath. Every breath is an invitation back to now. In Zen monasteries, monks practice one breath, one step, walking meditation. They coordinate their breathing with their movement, feeling each footfall, each inhale and exhale. This isn't complicated or esoteric. It's just a way of keeping the mind anchored in immediate reality rather than lost in mental time travel. You can do this anywhere. Walking from your car to the store, you can feel your feet, notice your breath, be present with the simple act of moving through space. Standing in line at the grocery store, instead of checking your phone or letting your mind race, you can feel your body, notice your surroundings, breathe consciously. The present moment isn't always pleasant, and that's important to acknowledge. Sometimes, being fully present means feeling sadness, anxiety, or physical discomfort without distraction. But even then, presence is medicine. When you stop running from difficult experiences and meet them with awareness, they often transform. There's a difference between pain and suffering that becomes clear in the light of presence. Pain is what's actually happening, a headache, a heartbreak, a difficult emotion. Suffering is all the mental commentary we add to the pain, the resistance, the stories, the fears about what it means. Presence has a way of separating these two, allowing you to experience what's actually happening without the added layer of mental suffering. Someone once described their experience with chronic illness this way: when I stopped fighting my symptoms and started breathing with them, they were still there, but they felt less like enemies and more like uncomfortable houseguests. I could live with uncomfortable houseguests. It was the war I was waging against them that was exhausting me. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on healing. It means learning to take care of yourself from a place of presence rather than panic. When you're present, you can make clearer decisions about what your body needs. You can distinguish between necessary action and anxious activity. The Buddha taught that everything we need for peace is already within us, waiting to be uncovered. Not developed or achieved, but uncovered. Like the sun that's always shining behind the clouds, peace is always present behind the mental weather of thoughts and emotions. Presence is what clears the clouds. When you're truly present, you're not trying to get anywhere or become anyone different. You're not working towards some future state of enlightenment or healing. You're recognizing what's already here, already whole, already perfect in its imperfection. This can be a radical shift for those of us trained to always be improving, fixing, optimizing. The mind that's always trying to get somewhere else struggles with the invitation to simply be here. But that's exactly the invitation that leads to freedom. There's a traditional Buddhist meditation called just sitting, where the instruction is beautifully simple: sit and be present with whatever arises. No goal except presence itself. No technique except awareness. This practice reveals something profound, that presence itself is inherently healing, inherently peaceful, inherently whole. You don't need to sit on a meditation cushion to practice this. You can practice just being while folding laundry, waiting for the bus, or lying in bed before sleep. The invitation is the same. Be present with whatever is actually happening right now, without trying to change it or escape it. Here's a simple practice that can transform your relationship with this moment. For the next 3 minutes, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, try this gentle breathing exercise. You don't need to change positions or close your eyes, though you can if it feels comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you inhale, say silently to yourself, "Now is safe." As you exhale, whisper internally, "Now is enough." Breathe in, "Now is safe." Breathe out, "Now is enough." Don't worry about doing it perfectly. If your mind wanders, that's completely normal. Just gently return to the breath and the phrases. Now is safe. Now is enough. This isn't about convincing yourself that everything in your life is perfect. It's about recognizing that this moment, right now, contains everything you need to breathe, to be aware, to exist. In this moment, you're not missing anything essential. You have breath, you have awareness, you have life flowing through you. As you continue breathing, notice that you don't have to solve anything right now. You don't have to figure out tomorrow or fix yesterday. Right now, in this moment, your only job is to breathe and be present. Let that be enough. Notice how your body feels as you breathe with these words. Does something soften? Does the urgency in your chest ease slightly? You might feel nothing dramatic, and that's perfect. Sometimes presence feels like the absence of struggle rather than the presence of bliss. After your 3 minutes, you might find that you want to continue. Or you might feel ready to return to whatever you were doing, but with a slightly different quality of attention. Both are fine. This practice is always available to you, in line at the store, before a difficult conversation, lying in bed at night. The ancient Buddhist texts speak of presence as the gateless gate, the doorway that's always open, because there's actually nowhere to go. You're already here. You're already home. Presence is simply recognizing this truth. One of the most healing aspects of presence is that it interrupts the "what if" spiral that anxiety loves to create. When you're fully present, you're not available for the mind's endless catastrophizing about the future. You're busy being here, breathing here, feeling your feet on the ground here. This doesn't mean avoiding planning or being responsible about the future. It means doing your planning from a place of presence rather than panic. When you plan from presence, you make clearer decisions. When you plan from anxiety, you often create more problems than you solve. Someone once said that worry is like paying interest on a debt that may never come due. Presence is like returning to your actual bank balance, what's really here, what's really happening, what actually needs your attention right now. The more you practice presence, the more you realize how much energy you've been spending on mental time travel. All that energy that was tied up in regretting the past and worrying about the future becomes available for living your actual life. You have more energy for healing, for joy, for connection, for whatever this moment is asking of you. Presence also changes your relationship with waiting. Instead of waiting for the light to change, you can be present with the act of waiting. Instead of enduring a slow line at the post office, you can practice breathing, feeling your body, noticing your surroundings. Waiting stops being a problem and becomes an opportunity. There's a beautiful story of a Zen master who was asked by a student, "What is the secret of your peace?" The master replied, "I never leave where I am." This seems simple, but it points to something profound. Most of our suffering comes from mentally leaving where we are, escaping into regrets, projecting into fears, anywhere but here. There's a Zen saying, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This captures the essence of present moment awareness beautifully. You don't need to be different to be worthy of love, peace, or healing. And at the same time, growth and change are natural parts of life. Presence holds both truths simultaneously. When you're present, you're not trying to maintain some special state or feeling. Presence isn't a mood that comes and goes. It's the awareness that's always here, the space in which all moods and feelings arise and pass away. You can be present with happiness, and you can be present with sadness. Both are welcome. This is why presence is such a reliable refuge. It doesn't depend on circumstances being a certain way. You can be present in a hospital room or a garden, during grief or celebration, in sickness or in health. Presence is always available because it's not something you create, it's something you already are. The body is your greatest teacher of presence. It's never worried about tomorrow's meeting or yesterday's mistake. It's always here, always now, always present. When you align your attention with your body's natural presence, you come home to yourself. Feel your hands right now. Notice the temperature, the texture of whatever they're touching. Feel your feet, whether they're bare or in shoes, whether you're sitting or standing. This is presence. Simple, immediate, always available. Notice your breath without trying to change it. Just observe the natural rhythm of inhaling and exhaling. This breath is happening now. It's never anywhere else. When you rest your attention here, you're practicing the most fundamental form of meditation. Presence isn't about having a quiet mind. Thoughts will continue to come and go. That's what minds do. Presence is about not being carried away by every thought that arises. You can notice thoughts like clouds passing through the sky of your awareness without getting caught up in their drama. Someone once described their meditation practice this way: I used to think meditation was about stopping thoughts. Now I realize it's about stopping the believing of every thought. I can watch my mind worry about the future without joining the worry party. I can observe my thoughts about the past without being dragged back in time. This is the freedom that presence offers. Not freedom from having thoughts and feelings, but freedom from being enslaved by them. You become the witness, the awareness, the sky in which all mental weather arises and passes away. The more you practice presence, the more you notice how much of life you've been missing while lost in thought. The way light filters through your window, the feeling of water on your skin in the shower, the taste of your food, the sound of someone's voice when they're speaking to you with love. These simple experiences become more vivid, more nourishing when met with presence. Not because they've changed, but because you're finally fully here to receive them. Life becomes richer not because you've added anything to it, but because you've stopped subtracting yourself from it. In the Buddhist understanding, healing happens when we stop interfering with our natural wholeness. We're not broken things that need to be fixed. We're whole beings who have forgotten our wholeness. Presence is what helps us remember. When you're present with a headache, you might discover that much of your suffering was coming from your resistance to the headache, not the headache itself. When you're present with sadness, you might find that sadness held with awareness is very different from sadness mixed with the story that you shouldn't be sad. This doesn't mean you become passive about taking care of yourself. If you have a headache, you might still take medicine. If you're sad, you might still seek support. But you do these things from a place of self-compassion rather than self-rejection, from presence rather than panic. Presence is also the foundation of true self-compassion. When you're present with your struggles, you naturally feel more tenderness toward yourself. It's hard to be harsh with someone you're really paying attention to. And you are someone deserving of your own kind attention. Think about how you would treat a good friend who was suffering. You would be present with them, listen to them, offer comfort. You wouldn't tell them to get over it or compare their pain to someone else's. Presence allows you to offer yourself this same quality of caring attention Most people will continue to live slightly outside their own lives, always mentally reaching for the next moment, the next experience, the next solution. They'll miss the healing that's available right here, right now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this moment of being alive. But you're learning something different. You're discovering that you don't have to wait to arrive at your life. You're already here. You don't have to earn peace. It's already present, underneath all the mental noise. You don't have to become worthy of healing. You already are. This moment contains everything you need to take the next breath, to feel the next heartbeat, to be present for the next experience that life offers you. And when you string together moments of presence, you discover that you're not just healing, you're awakening to the life that's been waiting for you all along. But presence alone, as powerful as it is, isn't the deepest medicine available to you. Because there's something even more fundamental than learning to be present. It's learning to be present with love, especially toward the parts of yourself you've been rejecting. And that brings us to the fourth principle, one that holds the key to healing not just your body, but your relationship with the very experience of being human. The fourth principle reveals something that might surprise you about the nature of aging itself. Have you ever noticed how quickly a child bounces back from a fall, but how slowly an adult recovers from a disappointment? A child scrapes their knee, cries for a moment, then runs off to play again. But we adults can carry the emotional bruises of disappointment for months, even years. What if the pain of growing older isn't coming from your body, but from the stories you've attached to it? What if it's not your joints that are aging fastest, or your memory, or your energy levels? What if it's your belief system? In Zen Buddhism, we understand that suffering is not caused by what happens to us, but by our attachment to how we wish things would stay. In our culture, we've been conditioned to worship youth, to chase it, inject it, filter it. But in the Buddhist understanding, impermanence isn't something to fear, it's something to bow to. Look at a tree in autumn. It doesn't grieve the falling leaves or resist the changing seasons. It releases what no longer serves, trusting the natural rhythm of life. It goes gracefully, beautifully, knowing that what falls makes room for what comes next. Aging, in this light, is not decay. It's a return to essence, to clarity, to what truly matters. But the real suffering begins when we resist this natural unfolding. When we tell ourselves stories like, "I shouldn't feel this tired," or "I used to be able to do this," or "I look so old." These inner narratives don't just drain your joy, they actually affect your biology. The thoughts you think about aging become the reality you live. When you repeatedly tell yourself you're falling apart, your cells are listening and responding. When you constantly focus on what you've lost rather than what you're gaining, you create an internal environment of decline rather than renewal. There was a woman who seemed to glow with an inner light that had nothing to do with cosmetics or treatments. She moved through the world with a grace that made people want to sit near her, just to absorb some of her peace. When asked about her secret, she smiled and said something remarkable. "I stopped believing I was old." She wasn't in denial about her changing body. She had arthritis, her hands shook slightly when she poured tea, and she'd lost her partner of 40 years. But she had something that can't be bottled or prescribed: dignity. That quiet grace that comes from being present, not perfect. "The body changes," she explained, "but I wake up every morning and say thank you for another day of breathing. I don't say thank you because everything is perfect. I say thank you because I'm still here to experience imperfection, and that's a miracle." This is the Buddhist understanding of aging gracefully, not fighting the changes, but changing your relationship with change itself. It's about recognizing that what we call getting older is actually getting deeper. Like wine that improves with time, or cheese that develops complexity through aging, human beings can ripen in ways that have nothing to do with physical youth. Think of aging like the ripening of fruit. When a fruit is young, it's firm and glossy, but often sour or flavorless. As it ripens, it may soften, its skin may develop spots, but it becomes sweet, complex, nourishing. It transforms from something that looks perfect but tastes incomplete to something that may appear imperfect but offers deep satisfaction. In the same way, your being is ripening. You're becoming medicine for others, wisdom for the world, depth for those who are still learning what it means to be human. But only if you choose to see it that way. Only if you stop measuring your worth by the standards of youth and start recognizing the gifts that come with having lived. There's a profound shift that happens when you realize that your value isn't diminishing with age, it's concentrating. Like essential oil distilled from countless flowers, your essence becomes more potent, more refined, more purely itself. The superficial aspects of personality fall away, revealing the core of who you truly are. A man once described this transformation. "In my 20s, I was trying to be impressive. In my 30s, I was trying to be successful. In my 40s, I was trying to be right. But now, in my later years, I'm finally trying to be real. And being real, I've discovered, is the most attractive thing of all." This authenticity that often emerges with age is a direct result of having less energy to waste on pretense. When you know your time and energy are precious, you become more selective about how you spend them. You stop performing for audiences that don't matter and start living for what does. Of course, ripening doesn't mean we love every creak, every grey hair, every moment when our bodies remind us they're not 20 anymore. Let's be honest, some mornings feel like a game of, what new sound will my body make today? But that's where humor becomes medicine, where acceptance becomes freedom. When you stop resisting the natural changes of aging and start approaching them with curiosity, even affection, something shifts. That ache in your knee becomes a weather predictor. Those laugh lines become a map of all the joy you've experienced. That slower pace becomes an invitation to notice things you missed when you were rushing through life. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent, including our physical forms. But he also taught that within impermanence lies the seed of freedom. When you truly accept that your body will change, that your energy will shift, that your face will show the passage of time, you stop wasting precious energy fighting the inevitable. That energy becomes available for living more fully in whatever form you currently inhabit. There's a profound difference between healthy aging and resigned aging. Healthy aging doesn't mean pretending you're not getting older. It means engaging with the aging process as a spiritual practice. It means asking not, how can I stop this? But, how can I do this beautifully? Buddhist teachings speak of the elder years as a time of potential wisdom, when the lessons of a lifetime can finally integrate into understanding. You've survived heartbreak and discovered you're stronger than you thought. You've made mistakes and learned that you can forgive yourself. You've lost people you love and found that love doesn't die with the body. These aren't consolation prizes for getting older. They're the real treasures that only come with time. A young person can be physically beautiful, but only someone who has lived can possess the beauty of hard-won wisdom. A young person can be energetic, but only someone who has faced life's challenges can offer the gift of perspective. What we call the generation gap is often just the difference between information and wisdom. Young people have access to all the information in the world, but older people have something more precious. They know which information actually matters. They've learned the difference between what seems important and what actually is important. There's a beautiful teaching in Zen about the difference between knowing and understanding. Knowing is collecting facts and information. This can happen at any age. Understanding is integrating experiences into wisdom. This takes time, patience, and often significant loss. You can know that everything changes intellectually, but you only understand it viscerally after watching life cycles repeat themselves over decades. When someone has lived through decades of human experience, they've witnessed the cycles of life repeatedly. They've seen that what feels like the end of the world usually isn't. They've learned that most problems solve themselves with time, that most fears never materialize, that most regrets fade. This isn't pessimism, it's perspective. But here's what's beautiful about Buddhist aging. It's not about becoming detached from life, but about becoming more skillfully attached. You learn to hold things lightly, to love deeply without clinging desperately. You discover that you can care passionately about things while also accepting that you can't control their outcomes. There was someone who described their experience of aging this way. I thought getting older would mean wanting less, but it's actually taught me to want more clearly. I don't want just anything anymore. I want what truly nourishes me. I don't love everyone anymore. I love specifically, intentionally, with the knowledge that time is precious. This selectivity isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. When you know that your energy is finite, you become more careful about how you spend it. You say no to things that drain you and yes to things that feed your spirit. You choose quality over quantity in relationships, experiences, commitments. The Buddhist concept of beginner's mind becomes even more valuable as we age. Instead of assuming you know how things work because you've lived longer, you maintain curiosity about life's ongoing mysteries. You approach each day with the understanding that there's still more to learn, more to discover, more to experience. Some of the most inspiring people are those who remain students of life, regardless of their age. They read new books, meet new people, try new things. They understand that aging doesn't mean calcifying. It can mean becoming more fluid, more adaptable, more open to surprise. There's also something to be said for the freedom that comes with caring less about others' opinions. When you've lived long enough to see how temporary most judgments are, you become less enslaved by them. You develop what might be called authentic boldness, the courage to be yourself without constantly seeking approval. This doesn't mean becoming rude or inconsiderate. It means developing the confidence to express your true thoughts, wear what makes you comfortable, spend time on what matters to you. It means finally understanding that you don't have to perform youth, beauty, or productivity to have value. In many Buddhist cultures, elders are revered, not despite their age, but because of it. They're seen as libraries of human experience, repositories of wisdom that can't be Googled or downloaded. They're valued not for what they can produce, but for what they can offer: perspective, guidance, the long view that only comes with having lived through multiple cycles of joy and sorrow. But even in cultures that worship youth, you can choose to see your aging process differently. You can recognize that every line on your face represents a moment you fully experienced. Every grey hair is evidence of stress you survived. Every ache is proof that you've used your body well, that you've lived actively rather than passively. The stories we tell ourselves about aging become the reality we inhabit. If your internal narrative is "I'm falling apart," that becomes your lived experience. If your story is "I'm becoming more myself," that shapes how you move through the world. If you tell yourself, "My best years are behind me," you'll unconsciously create evidence for that belief. But what if you chose a different story? What if your narrative was, "I'm ripening like good wine"? What if you told yourself, "I'm accumulating wisdom like interest in a spiritual bank account"? What if your daily affirmation was, "Every year, I become more truly myself"? These aren't empty positive thinking mantras. They're invitations to recognize the real gifts that come with having lived. The compassion that develops from having suffered and survived. The patience that comes from having learned that most problems solve themselves. The gratitude that grows from understanding how precious and temporary everything is. There's a beautiful Buddhist teaching about the difference between growing old and growing up. Growing old is what happens to your body. It's inevitable and natural. Growing up is what happens to your spirit. It's optional and intentional. You can grow old without growing up, remaining stuck in the concerns and complaints of earlier decades. Or you can use the aging process as an opportunity to mature into wisdom, grace, and acceptance. The fear of aging often stems from a fear of irrelevance, of becoming invisible, or unnecessary. But in the Buddhist understanding, relevance isn't about youth or productivity. It's about presence and compassion. The most relevant people are often those who have learned to truly listen, to offer comfort without trying to fix, to be present with others' pain without being overwhelmed by it. These skills rarely develop in youth when we're too busy establishing ourselves, proving ourselves, protecting ourselves. They emerge in the second half of life, when we've faced enough of our own challenges to develop genuine empathy for others' struggles. When we've accumulated enough losses to understand the preciousness of what remains. Your body is not betraying you as you age. It's initiating you into a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. It's teaching you that strength isn't just physical, that beauty isn't just external, that value isn't just productive. It's showing you that you can be powerful even when you're not dominant, beautiful even when you're not flawless, valuable even when you're not producing. The creaking joints, the slower reflexes, the need for reading glasses, these aren't signs of failure. They're invitations to develop other capacities. When your body moves more slowly, you have time to notice things you missed before. When your physical strength diminishes, you might discover emotional or spiritual strengths you never knew you had. There's wisdom in the way trees age, growing wider rather than taller, developing deep root systems that can weather any storm. Human aging can work the same way. You might not reach as high as you once did, but you can develop depths of character that make you unshakable. You can grow rings of wisdom like a tree grows rings of age, each year adding complexity and strength to your inner structure. Many people report that their greatest years began when they stopped trying to be who they thought they should be and started being who they actually are. This often happens in the second half of life, when the pressure to prove yourself diminishes and the freedom to express yourself increases. When you care less about impressing others and more about being authentic with yourself. A woman once shared her experience. I spent the first half of my life collecting achievements like trophies, thinking they would make me worthy of love. But in my later years, I discovered that I was worthy of love simply because I existed. That realization freed me to finally start living for joy rather than approval. The Buddhist path teaches that liberation isn't about escaping the human condition, but about embracing it fully. This includes embracing the aging process as part of the natural flow of existence. When you stop fighting reality and start flowing with it, you discover energies you never knew you had. Some of the most vibrant people are those who have made peace with their changing bodies and found new ways to express their aliveness. They might not run marathons anymore, but they create art. They might not party until dawn, but they wake early to watch sunrises. They might not chase adventures, but they savor simple pleasures with an intensity that younger people rarely achieve. There's a grace that comes with accepting your limitations rather than constantly fighting them. When you stop exhausting yourself trying to be 20 again, you have energy available for being fully who you are now. When you stop measuring yourself against your younger self, you can appreciate the unique gifts of your current self. The morning question changes from, "How can I look younger today?" to, How can I be more myself today? The focus shifts from hiding evidence of aging to celebrating evidence of having lived fully. The goal becomes not to turn back time, but to make the most of the time that remains. Buddhist teachings remind us that this life is temporary, that our bodies are on loan, that our time here is limited. This isn't meant to be depressing, it's meant to be motivating. When you truly understand the temporary nature of existence, every day becomes precious. Every conversation becomes meaningful. Every experience becomes sacred because you know it won't last forever. The aging process can be your greatest teacher of impermanence, showing you in real time how everything changes, how nothing stays the same. This can be liberating rather than frightening when you realize that the difficult things in your life are also impermanent. The pain you're feeling now will change. The circumstances that seem overwhelming today will shift. The problems that feel insurmountable will either be solved or become irrelevant with time. There's profound peace in accepting the natural rhythm of expansion and contraction that characterizes all of life. Your sphere of activity might contract as you age, but your sphere of understanding can expand. Your physical energy might diminish, but your emotional intelligence can deepen. Your social circle might get smaller, but your relationships can become more meaningful. The Buddhist concept of skillful aging involves learning to work with your changing capacities rather than against them. If you can't stand for long periods, you learn to appreciate sitting. If you can't travel far, you discover the richness of your immediate environment. If you can't do everything you once did, you choose more carefully what deserves your attention. This isn't settling for less, it's discovering more within less. It's finding that fulfillment doesn't require endless activity, that joy doesn't depend on constant stimulation, that meaning doesn't need external validation. These are lessons that often only become clear with age, gifts that come wrapped in the packaging of limitation. There's also a profound teaching hidden in the way aging forces us to slow down. In a culture obsessed with speed and efficiency, the natural slowing that comes with age can feel like failure. But from a Buddhist perspective, slowness is often where wisdom lives. When you can't rush anymore, you finally have time to truly experience your life. The ancient practice of walking meditation teaches us that there's profound value in moving slowly and deliberately. Each step becomes conscious, each breath becomes intentional. What if the physical slowing of age is an invitation into this same kind of conscious living? What if what looks like limitation is actually an opportunity for deeper presence? Many people discover that their creativity actually increases as they age, not despite their limitations, but because of them. When you can't rely on youth and energy to carry you through projects, you learn to work smarter, more intuitively. When you can't do everything, you focus on what truly matters to you. Constraints, as any artist knows, can be incredibly liberating. Most people will continue to fight their aging process until the very end, wasting precious energy on a battle they cannot win. They'll miss the beauty of autumn because they're still mourning the end of summer. They'll fail to appreciate the gifts of winter because they're trying to force spring to come early. But you're learning something different. You're discovering that every season of life has its own beauty, its own purpose, its own gifts. You're understanding that resistance creates suffering, but acceptance creates possibility. You're recognizing that the goal isn't to stop aging, but to age with grace, wisdom, and an open heart. Ask yourself, what belief about aging have you inherited that no longer serves you? What story about getting older are you ready to release? What would it feel like to wake up tomorrow and instead of counting what you've lost, appreciate what you've gained? Write it down, if you're moved to. I used to believe that aging meant, and then, now I choose to believe that aging means. Feel the difference between those two statements in your body. Notice how changing your story about aging changes how you feel about yourself right now. In Buddhism, we often speak of beginner's mind, approaching each moment with fresh eyes, regardless of how many times you've experienced something similar. Even at 60, 70, 80, you are not running out of firsts. You are not running out of wonder. You are running deeper into the mystery of what it means to be alive. But what breathes life into even the most tired body? What gives energy to someone who thought their vital years were behind them? What transforms the aging process from something to endure into something to embrace? It's the fifth and final principle, the one that reveals how purpose and meaning can literally rejuvenate your cells and transform your entire experience of being human. The fifth and final principle holds the most transformative truth of all. People don't die of illness. They die of hopelessness. They don't fade away because their bodies give out. They fade away because they've forgotten why they want their bodies to keep going. They lose their will to heal, not because healing is impossible, but because they've lost sight of what makes healing worthwhile. In Buddhism, there's a teaching called right livelihood, not just about your job, but about the energy behind everything you do. It's the understanding that when your actions align with your heart, when your days serve something larger than your immediate comfort, peace follows naturally. And that peace, dear friend, is profoundly healing. But let me be clear about something. Purpose doesn't have to be grand or public or impressive to others. It doesn't mean launching a foundation or writing a best-selling book or changing the world in obvious ways. Purpose can be as quiet as wanting to teach your granddaughter how to bake bread the way your grandmother taught you. It can be as simple as keeping a small garden alive because you love the way morning light touches the leaves. The lotus, after all, doesn't bloom from manicured soil. It rises from mud, from darkness, from the messiest parts of the pond. That's where strength is born. That's where purpose often reveals itself, not in the highlight reel of life, but in the ordinary moments when you choose to show up for something beyond yourself. There's a story that illustrates this beautifully. A monk who had devoted his life to teaching meditation continued to wake before dawn every single day to guide morning practice at his monastery. When someone asked him why he still maintained such a rigorous schedule, when he could have easily passed these duties to younger monks, he smiled, pointed to his legs, and said something profound. "Teaching is why my legs still work." He wasn't being metaphorical. He had discovered what happens when your body serves a purpose that feeds your spirit. His physical strength wasn't just maintained by exercise or good genetics, it was sustained by meaning. His legs worked because they carried him towards something he believed in. His heart beat strong because it was pumping love through his actions, not just blood through his veins. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual bypassing. There's deep wisdom here about how purpose literally affects your biology. When you have something to wake up for, your body responds differently to stress, illness, and even the natural aging process. When your days feel meaningful, your cells seem to remember that they too have meaningful work to do. The Buddhist understanding of purpose is different from our culture's obsession with achievement and recognition. It's not about what you accomplish, but about what you contribute. It's not about being seen, but about truly seeing others. It's not about leaving a legacy that will be remembered, but about living in a way that leaves people feeling a little more loved, a little more hopeful, a little more connected to their own goodness. Purpose, in the Buddhist sense, is about alignment, when what you do matches who you are at your deepest level. When your actions flow from your genuine nature, rather than from expectations, obligations, or the need to prove something. This alignment creates a kind of inner harmony that ripples out into every aspect of your life, including your physical health. Think about the last time you felt truly useful, truly needed in a good way. Maybe it was holding a friend who was grieving, or teaching someone a skill you'd mastered, or simply being present for someone who felt alone. Remember how your body felt in those moments. The aliveness, the energy, the sense of being exactly where you belonged. That's what purpose feels like in the body, not like burden, but like coming home. There was a woman who had slipped into a deep depression after retiring from her career as a nurse. She felt invisible, useless, forgotten by a world that had once needed her skills so desperately. Her days felt empty, her body felt heavy, and she began to wonder if her best years were truly behind her. One day, almost by accident, she wandered into the children's section of her local library during story time. The volunteer reader hadn't shown up, and the librarian was scrambling to entertain a group of restless children. Without thinking, this woman stepped forward and asked if she could help. As she began reading to those children, something magical happened. Her voice, which had felt rusty from disuse, became warm and animated. Her body, which had felt tired and achy, straightened with purpose. Her heart, which had felt empty, began to fill with something she'd almost forgotten, the joy of being needed. That one morning led to a weekly commitment, which led to special programs, which led to a complete transformation, not just of her days, but of her health. Her depression lifted not because she took different medication, but because she remembered who she was beneath the labels of retired and old. She was a healer, a nurturer, a light bringer. Those children didn't care about her age or her career status. They only cared that she showed up with stories and love. Her doctor was amazed by the change. Her energy levels increased, her chronic aches diminished, her sleep improved. When he asked what had changed in her treatment regimen, she smiled and said, "I remembered what I'm here for." This is the medicine of meaning. It doesn't just improve your mood, it can literally improve your health. When you have a reason to be here, your body receives the message that it's worth maintaining, worth healing, worth investing in. When you're serving something larger than your own comfort, your system shifts from survival mode to thriving mode. Purpose is like the sun. You may have cloudy days, you may forget it's there, but when you turn toward it, everything in your inner garden begins to grow. Even if slowly, even if subtly, you can feel life flowing back into places that had felt dormant. But here's what's beautiful about this. You don't have to find purpose. You have to remember it. It's already there, waiting beneath the stories of limitation, beneath the fears of irrelevance, beneath the belief that your best contributions are behind you. Purpose isn't something you achieve, it's something you embody. Maybe your purpose is listening. In a world full of people desperate to be heard, your willingness to truly listen could be someone's lifeline. Maybe your purpose is creating beauty, arranging flowers, writing letters, making music, cooking meals that taste like love. Maybe your purpose is simply being a peaceful presence in chaotic spaces, offering others a glimpse of what calm looks like. The Buddhist concept of dana, giving without expectation of return, teaches us that the act of giving is itself healing. When you give your time, your attention, your skills, your presence, you're not depleting yourself. You're participating in the flow of life. You're remembering that you're not just a recipient of life's gifts, but a giver of them. There's a man who discovered this truth in the simplest way. After years of feeling useless in retirement, he began sitting on a bench outside the grocery store, greeting people as they came and went. Just saying, "Good morning," asking how they were, offering a smile to anyone who seemed like they needed one. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But people began to look forward to seeing him. Mothers with crying babies would pause for his gentle words of encouragement. Tired workers would find themselves smiling before they even realized why. Children would wave from shopping carts, delighted by his animated greetings. He wasn't counseling anyone or solving major problems. He was simply offering his presence, his warmth, his genuine interest in others' well-being. And in doing so, he discovered something remarkable. His chronic back pain, which had plagued him for years, began to ease. Not because sitting on a bench was therapeutic for his spine, but because serving others was therapeutic for his spirit. This is how purpose works. It's magnetic. When you align with something that feels true and meaningful, life begins to conspire in your favor. Opportunities appear, energy returns, health improves, connections deepen. It's not magic. It's the natural result of living in harmony with your deeper nature. But what if you've lost touch with what feels meaningful to you? What if purpose feels like a luxury you can't afford when you're just trying to get through each day? This is where the Buddhist wisdom becomes especially gentle and practical. Start with the smallest possible service. Hold the door for someone whose hands are full. Compliment a cashier who looks tired. Send a text to someone you haven't spoken to in a while, just to let them know you're thinking of them. Feed the birds in your yard. Water a neighbor's plants. Smile at strangers. These tiny acts of service might seem insignificant, but they're actually profound practice. They remind you that you have something to offer, that your presence matters, that you can make a difference in ways both seen and unseen. They connect you to the web of interdependence that Buddhist teachings say binds all life together. Purpose doesn't require you to change the whole world. It just requires you to change someone's moment. To transform someone's day from ordinary to special, from lonely to connected, from hopeless to hopeful. You have the power to do this regardless of your age, your health status, your circumstances. There's a beautiful teaching about the difference between having something to live for and having something to die for. When you have something to die for, a cause, a belief, an ideal, you often end up actually dying for it, literally or metaphorically. But when you have something to live for, a person to care for, a skill to share, a joy to spread, you find yourself more alive than ever. The question isn't, how many years do I have left? The real question is, what will I bring to the years I have? Will you bring wisdom gained from your experiences? Will you bring compassion learned from your own struggles? Will you bring presence cultivated through years of living? Age, from this perspective, isn't about loss, it's about accumulation. Every year you've lived has added to your capacity for understanding, for empathy, for depth. You've collected stories, insights, perspectives that younger people simply haven't had time to gather. This collection isn't just for your own benefit, it's for the benefit of everyone whose life you touch. There's something profoundly healing about being needed not for what you can produce, but for who you are. The grandmother whose grandchildren seek her out, not because she has money or energy, but because she has time and attention and unconditional love. The neighbor who's become the unofficial counselor on his street because he's learned to listen without judgment. The woman at the community center who remembers everyone's names and always asks about their lives with genuine interest. These people have discovered the secret that purpose isn't about doing extraordinary things, it's about doing ordinary things with extraordinary presence and care. It's about showing up fully for the small moments that make up a human life. Buddhist teachings speak of bodhisattvas, beings who dedicate their lives to reducing suffering and increasing happiness for all sentient beings. You don't need to be enlightened or formally religious to live like a bodhisattva. You just need to wake up each day with the intention to be helpful, to be kind, to reduce rather than add to the world's burden of pain. This intention alone can transform your relationship with your own aging, your own health challenges, your own life circumstances. When you're focused on how you can serve, you're not preoccupied with how you're suffering. When you're thinking about what you can give, you're not dwelling on what you lack. When you're engaged in helping others heal, you often find yourself healing in the process. Purpose also provides what psychologists call stress inoculation. When you're connected to something meaningful, daily stresses feel more manageable because they're placed in a larger context. The frustration of a slow computer becomes less significant when you're using that computer to write letters to isolated seniors. The discomfort of a long walk becomes easier to bear when you're walking to volunteer at a food bank. This isn't about denying your difficulties or pretending your challenges don't matter. It's about discovering that difficulties become more bearable when they're part of a meaningful journey rather than obstacles to a meaningless existence. It's about understanding that challenges can actually strengthen your capacity to help others who face similar struggles. Many people discover that their greatest wounds become their greatest gifts when transformed through service. The person who struggled with addiction becomes a counselor for others fighting the same battle. The parent who lost a child becomes an advocate for child safety. The patient who survived a serious illness becomes a source of hope for others facing similar diagnoses. Your pain, when transformed through purpose, becomes medicine not just for you but for others. This doesn't mean your suffering was worth it, or that everything happens for a reason. It means that you have the power to ensure your suffering wasn't meaningless by using it to reduce others' suffering. There's a profound teaching in Buddhism about turning poison into medicine. The very experiences that seem to be destroying you can become the source of your power to heal others. The depression you survived gives you credibility when you offer hope to someone in despair. The physical pain you've learned to live with makes you a compassionate companion for others dealing with chronic illness. Purpose doesn't eliminate your problems. It transforms your relationship with them. It gives you a reason to keep working with them, learning from them, growing through them. It helps you see your challenges not as punishments, but as preparation for greater service. This perspective can be especially powerful when dealing with the changes that come with aging. Instead of seeing your slowing pace as a limitation, you might discover it allows you to be more present with people who also move slowly. Instead of viewing your need for assistance as weakness, you might find that accepting help gracefully teaches others how to receive care when they need it. Every stage of life, every change in capacity, every shift in circumstances offers new opportunities for service if you're open to seeing them. The person who can no longer drive might become an expert at online support groups. The grandmother who can't travel might become the family's keeper of stories and traditions. The retiree who can't work full-time might discover the perfect volunteer role that needs exactly their specific schedule and skills. Purpose is endlessly creative in finding ways to express itself through your unique circumstances. It doesn't require you to be someone you're not or do things you can't do. It asks only that you show up as who you are and offer what you have, even if what you have feels small or insufficient. There's a beautiful story about a teacher who asked his students what they would do if they knew they only had one day left to live. The students gave elaborate answers about exotic travels and dramatic gestures. The teacher listened, then said, "I would do exactly what I'm doing right now, teaching you. Because this is what I'm here for, and there's no moment more important than this one to be doing what I'm here for." This is the ultimate medicine of meaning, the recognition that your purpose isn't waiting for you in some future moment when you're healthier or more capable or have more resources. Your purpose is available right now, in whatever form you can currently express it. Maybe today your purpose is resting so you'll have energy to call a lonely friend tomorrow. Maybe it's taking care of your own healing so you can be more present for others. Maybe it's simply practicing patience and kindness with yourself so you can model those qualities for others who struggle with self-compassion. Purpose doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like being. Being a peaceful presence in stressful situations. Being a source of acceptance for people who judge themselves harshly. Being an example of someone who has learned to age gracefully, love deeply, and face difficulties with dignity. When you embody these qualities, you're serving others, whether you realize it or not. Your example gives others permission to be human, to struggle, to age, to be imperfect while still being valuable. This kind of service doesn't require you to do anything special. It just requires you to be authentically yourself while remaining open to connection with others. The Buddhist understanding of interconnectedness teaches us that your healing contributes to the healing of the whole. When you find peace with your aging process, you make it easier for others to age peacefully. When you discover purpose in your circumstances, you expand the possibilities for others in similar situations. When you transform your challenges into wisdom, you add to the collective wisdom available to humanity. This means that your personal journey toward healing and meaning isn't selfish, it's service. Every moment of genuine peace you experience, every insight you gain, every bit of healing you achieve becomes available to others in ways both seen and unseen. You're not just healing for yourself, you're healing for everyone who will encounter the person you become through your healing. Most people will continue to live as if their only purpose is to avoid discomfort and pursue pleasure. They'll miss the profound healing that comes from aligning with something larger than their immediate concerns. They'll spend their energy trying to extend their lives without ever asking what would make their lives worth extending. But you're discovering something different. You're learning that the question isn't, how long will I live, but how deeply will I live? You're understanding that the goal isn't to have more years, but to have more meaning in the years you have. You're recognizing that purpose isn't a luxury for the young and healthy. It's medicine for anyone brave enough to look beyond their own concerns and ask, how can I help? So let me ask you this, in the quiet of this moment, what is one reason you still want to wake up tomorrow? Not because you should or because others expect you to, but because something in you still feels called to be here, to participate, to contribute to the great web of existence in whatever way you can. Maybe it's as simple as wanting to see tomorrow's sunrise. Maybe it's the desire to hear your loved one's voice one more time. Maybe it's the hope that you might be able to ease someone's burden, even in the smallest way. Maybe it's curiosity about what you might learn or who you might meet or how you might grow. Whatever it is, however small it might seem, honor it. Let it be enough for now. Let it be the seed from which larger purposes can grow. Let it remind you that you're not just a body aging through time. You're a conscious being with something unique to offer, something that only you can give in exactly the way you can give it. Purpose doesn't require you to be perfect or healed or enlightened. It requires you to be present, to be genuine, to be willing to let your life matter to someone, including yourself. It asks you to remember that every day you're here is an opportunity to add a little more light to the world, even if that light sometimes flickers, even if it's not as bright as it once was. Your life is not winding down, it's deepening. Your purpose is not behind you, it's still unfolding. Your greatest contributions may not be in your past. They may be in the love you share today, the wisdom you offer tomorrow, the presence you bring to this very moment. You are not too old, too tired, too broken, or too late. You are exactly who the world needs right now, someone who has lived, who has learned, who has something to offer that can only come from having walked the path you've walked. Your medicine is your presence. Your healing is your gift. Your purpose is your willingness to keep showing up for life, for others, for the sacred work of being human. So tonight, as you prepare for rest, carry this with you. Tomorrow is not just another day to get through. It's another opportunity to remember who you are beneath all the stories of limitation. It's another chance to offer something, a smile, a prayer, a helping hand, a listening ear that makes the world a little bit better for your having been in it. You are not broken. You are not finished. You are medicine, walking around in human form, still learning, still healing, still becoming who you were always meant to be. And that, dear friend, is the most healing truth of all. As we reach the end of this journey together, let's pause and feel what has shifted within you. You've learned that your body speaks a language of wisdom, not malfunction. You've discovered that emotions, when welcomed with compassion, become allies rather than enemies. You've touched the medicine that lives in this present moment, always available, always healing. You've seen how the stories you tell about aging can either imprison or liberate you. And you've remembered that purpose, even the quietest purpose, breathes life into every cell, every breath, every day you're given. These 5 principles aren't just concepts to understand, they're invitations to live differently. To listen more deeply, feel more courageously, stay more present, age more gracefully, and serve more meaningfully. The Buddha taught that healing happens not when we fix ourselves, but when we remember our inherent wholeness. You are not a problem to be solved, dear friend. You are a mystery to be lived, a presence to be honored, a gift to be shared. Take this peace with you now, into your days, into your relationships, into whatever challenges or joys await you. Remember that healing isn't a destination you arrive at, but a way of walking through life, gently, consciously, with love for the being you are and the being you're becoming. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you remember your wholeness. And may your healing ripple out to touch every life you encounter